Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining for the second Q&A session we are doing here at Estateguru. We are continuing this Q&A session with our Chief Credit Officer Andres Luts and myself, Daniil. And we decided to do it also quite shortly after the previous one because we saw quite many questions coming up, especially focusing on our German market. So we dedicated this sessions particularly for covering situation we are having in Germany. And this time we also received over 100 different questions. And in the scope of this Q&A session, we probably will not be able to answer each and every particular question, but we have generalized many of the similar questions, and that's why we will try to kick it off with main questions the investors are having, and hopefully every question will be answered, and if not, then please feel free to write us to our customer support, and we will definitely answer each and every particular question there. So Andres, again, thanks for joining.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
This time we see a little bit more concrete questions following our previous one, where we touched our late loans in general, prolongings, defaults, the procedures, and as our portfolio in Germany has seen different spikes increasing with delays and defaults, then investors have been really asking more details about the situation there. So let's kick it off with the first main questions we are having. So what are the reasons of many German loans being defaulted?
So there are different reasons. First of all, as you know, the macroeconomic situation has changed drastically since March of last year. There have been increase in interest rates, and this all has affected the construction market, the financing market, and also inevitably our borrowers. There are also some borrower groups who think that our German operations and the changes that we had, that they can basically not pay the loan due to our internal changes. So there are different borrowers who basically are behind that reason, and they are not willing to pay. So that is why we have decided on a company level that we have exhausted the normal ways of debt collection with them, and we intentionally put them into default and started enforcement. So that is why the default rate increased last year, and that is why we have now partnered up with different debt collection partners, claim purchasers, to basically resolve these problems quickly, because in many cases we know that the borrower has the money, but they just don't pay to us.
Is it something that only touched Germany country particularly, or there is similar trends in the other countries, or you see that only happening in German market?
I think there are similarities in Finland and now in Lithuania, but in other markets our portfolios are quite small, and we don't have so many bigger borrowers who can basically affect the default rate so much. So in Finland and Lithuania we had some borrower groups who also now have faced difficulties due to market changes.
All right. The next question, probably the follow-up on that as well, is that what did the Estateguru learn from the recent, let's say, escalation of the situation, and what could be improved in the future, or what are the next steps we are taking in Germany currently?
No, in that sense, we are not basically avoiding the problems. So what we have learned is that with some of the borrowers we can find a solution, and I think no, in the loan origination side, we have been flexible, more flexible than banks, and also we have been flexible in the debt collection side. So I think this has been a lesson learned that in some countries, for instance in Germany, we need to go to hard collection right away. So of course we recovered around 8 million euros worth of principal and interest last year from May in Germany, but I think in some cases maybe the recoveries would have happened earlier if we would have been more aggressive with the borrowers. So I think this is the main lesson learned in debt collection side. In loan origination side, like we mentioned last time, then I think one borrower group can handle maximum 3 projects. No, in some cases we have given more, and these borrowers now facing problems. It means that when the market has changed, they cannot basically cover the interest rates because construction costs are higher, they need to put more equity, and this reduces their repayment ability.
I agree. I believe it's a good point here to go through the basics as well, because we have received quite many and a significant amount of questions asking particularly about the default and what it means. Investors are asking would they lose all of their investment funds, principal and so on. So perhaps just let's go through it. So what means first of all, as we are financing mortgage-backed loans, what means that if there is a mortgage over the collateral, and what happens when the loan goes into default? What does it mean to investors? Do they lose all the money?
No, they don't lose all the money. No. Our financing product is quite simple in that sense that we only finance companies, and companies need to have real estate collateral. And over 95% of our collaterals have first-rank mortgages. This means that when we go to enforcement and auction and realization of the collateral, then always we are the first ones who receive the money. Yes, there are some smaller particularities in some countries where small taxes or state fees are being paid before us, but in general we are the ones, or our investors are the ones who always get first the money. So default currently has been defined, as all know from our timeline and loan updates, is a situation where the project has been late on average or usually 90 days, and then we basically terminate the contract and start enforcement. Yes, there are exceptions. We can terminate and start defaulting earlier if there's a fraud case, somebody else has started the enforcement already, and we see that the financial status of the company has weakened. We have in some cases extended this default date to up to 180 days, in some rare cases even more, but now with the new European legislation it needs to be defaulted at 90 days. And this doesn't mean that you will lose your money. We are not in the unsecured lending business. All the loans are secured by real estate, like I mentioned, and it just takes time to recover because not dependent on the country, it can take 3 to 6 months if the borrower doesn't dispute to get to the auction and to sell the property.
It's I think good to go through it in a maybe easy example is if you are taking if you're purchasing your house or apartment and you go to the traditional bank, then traditional bank is also setting a mortgage over your property which you are purchasing if you're using bank financing. And when for example, if I buy myself personally an apartment, I take a bank loan, then bank also is setting a first rank mortgage over the collateral. It's the same exact way we are dealing with the companies, and when we're issuing different development loans or bridge loans or business loans. And whenever I face some kind of a financial problems or I'm not able to repay back, then my loan is defaulting. But that doesn't mean that I'm not liable for paying all the loan I took. It's the same goes to our borrowers. So as we have the mortgage set on the property, then the financial authority, or not the financial authority, but the institution, either it's a bank or us in this case, we can go after the collateral and sell it through the different structures we can have, either auction or another solution. And that means that whenever the process has been ended, then the money from the sale of the collateral or the debt is actually being repaid back. So just to assure, in the sense to everybody who has been asking, default does not mean that your money is lost. It means that we are in the process of the asset realization and doing everything from our hands to recover the loan and repay back. And in the best situation, also the principal, the interest rate, and all the penalties involved if the loan goes over the time and how long it does take. Yeah, that's probably good to mention that, because quite well plenty of questions were related to that. Another question is that maybe also a little bit further to talk about the German defaults, especially that how come Estateguru is still having difficulty in liquidating the positions on short term. So perhaps a little bit sharing the light, what's the typical time of actually solving different default cases? What has been our market practice in the other countries as well, and what's currently expectations for the German loans?
So it always depends on the market and the case. So for instance, in Estonia, Latvia, we have even sold loan claims after defaulting the loans in 1 or 2 weeks after it happened. Also, we see that in Germany, the appetite for this type of claims is quite high, but it has taken, due to bureaucracy in Germany, over 6 months to get these contracts signed with the potential buyers. They have tested our mortgage system and now are confident that our claims are enforceable, and now we are waiting for the price offers, basically. But typically, when you look the enforcement and sale of collateral, then in Estonia and I would say in Latvia, Lithuania, it's quite efficient. After we terminate and have defaulted the loan, it can take up to 3 months to get to the auction if the borrower doesn't dispute the process. In Finland, it is a little bit slower because we need to go to the court to get the approval for the auction. In other countries, basically the bailiff has the right to start the auction. So in Finland it takes typically 4 to 6 months, and in Germany, German particularity is that after termination the borrower has 6 months of voluntary payment, and after that we can go to auction, and after that we can go to court and then to auction, and it can take to 12 months on top of that. So it's a longer process, and that is why we are heavily investing our capital markets resources, our risk resources, our legal resources to sell the claims in Germany as soon as possible. And we are even looking at the wholesale of the portfolio.
There is one actually really concrete question. Is there any risk of German courts not admitting Estateguru's claims?
So this we have now tested, and one of the largest debt collectors and claim purchases has reviewed all of our contracts, which means that our legal partner Lambsdorff has done a good job, and all the mortgages are valid and can be enforceable and can be put into court processes.
Right, that's good positive news that everything has been done by the book, and that our procedures when we even explored the German market, prepared for that, has been done accordingly to the local legislations, and we have chosen a great and professional partners there when we started and when we already operated there. Then perhaps jumping a little bit also to some of the legal questions being raised here, that we also provided information during at the beginning of the year and explained a little bit the situation in Germany. And we mentioned also that we are currently having internal investigation happening. So in case of this internal processes have not been followed, issuing the loans on the platform, is Estateguru liable for issuing any bad loans? One investor has asked that question.
So internal investigation is currently ongoing, and we are basically putting together the materials for our external auditors with our legal team, and currently when we look the issuing of the loans and the origination side, then all of the procedures have been followed. But of course, this is our opinion, and that is why we need to have independent third-party audit. And why we are doing is that we are going to have the pan-European license, and we already are preparing for the question of the financial authority, who basically will also want to see this audit, and maybe they will do their own one.
How are we planning to communicate the process of investigation? As we have also mentioned and stated, as it's an ongoing process, we currently cannot really disclose fully the situation there to protect every party, including the investors and us. What's the plan of communicating? When investors could expect to receive some updates? Is there any currently deadlines or timeline for that?
So currently we don't have exact deadline. As I mentioned, we are gathering the documents. We have now partners, third parties, legal partners who are looking over these documents. As there are also, there might be some criminal investigations, then we cannot disclose to our investors the particularities. But I think mid-summer, in the beginning of autumn, maybe we can publish the full report or the summary to our investors. So we want to be transparent, and we are not hiding anything. But you need to understand, and investors need to understand, that if we disclose something right now, it can affect the enforcement process. The people who might be responsible can take advantage of this information and harm the investigation.
Yeah, in that sense, also agree with you. Is that we are being really transparent. I think we are not just saying that, but we are proving by different actions, including this Q&A session, also by starting to publish monthly German portfolio updates as well to our investors. And we definitely will be informing whenever we know something, but at the same time, we, as Andres, you mentioned, we really are focusing now on the execution part here, and we'd rather provide the positive news when we have them, instead of just probably explaining week after week that, I don't know, a paper has been sent there and received, so doesn't give any new information to our investors.
And one thing that I want to mention is that we have lots of questions about why we didn't report it earlier, but it's again related to these investigations, that ever since we changed the country manager in Germany, all of the legal partners, our internal operations team, and everybody has been hands-on in going through the cases, the procedures, what was followed and not. And as I mentioned, we couldn't disclose anything in the beginning last year when we had these internal investigations where we gathered the materials. And now, as we have gathered and have already presented these to our legal advisors, third-party advisors, and also authorities, then basically we are ready to disclose it.
Thank you for disclosing this information. I think this has been one of the most popular question we have received for this Q&A. But let's jump also to the process question. So, what is the process of how we going to solve the defaulted loan cases? We are probably not going to jump into a particular loan by loan type of series, but in general, what are the steps the risk department is doing from the headquarter level, from the local level in Germany? Mm-hmm. Could you probably go through some of the agenda points?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, we have still up to 5 borrowers with whom I am in contact, and we are basically looking and helping them to refinance the loans and sell the properties voluntarily. These borrowers in that sense are cooperative, and I hope that we can solve the first case in February, March already. So some partial repayments have gone in, borrowers are reliable, all the notary transactions and sale processes are under our control, and we are working with them. So other group is related to the sale of claims. So there we see that as the market of secured mortgage-backed loans in Germany is dry, then we are offering some collaterals and also the whole portfolio of defaulted loans to up to 10 different parties right now. And we are planning to appoint a very strong brokerage to sell the claims. So currently we have done it through our main debt collector HMCS, and there are smaller ones, and also our capital markets has lots of contacts. So these are basically the main two actions that we do, regular workout and also the sale of claims. And third one, we basically go to auction eventually and sell it through auction process.
The auction process. Is there investors have been asking how long it could take specifically to recover German defaults? You mentioned some of the time frames starting from 6 months voluntary period, then up to 12 months additional on top if there are some questions from the court. But any information? What's the typical in the German market? How long usually have been taking? What's the market practice there?
No, as I mentioned, due to this volatility of our mortgages and the bureaucracy, we have already spent 6 months trying to sell the claims. So now we are in the point that we are waiting for the price offers. So I hope that in the beginning of Q2 we will see the first sales of claims. Regarding the workouts, again, we have worked 6 months and we are now seeing the results. But when we go to court, 6 months has now passed from the first termination, so it can take to 1 year more. And if they dispute, I think in some few cases they will dispute the enforcement, so there we can have more time on top of that. So,
but from the positive side, you mentioned also in the beginning that we, through the previous year, we recovered over 8 million.
Over 10 million worth of principal, plus the average yield was 10%, and also all the legal costs were covered. So it was 30 million basically recovered.
So it actually proves as well that we have done already the procedures of the recovery.
Yeah.
And as I said, there is in some cases it could go smoother, in some cases it could take longer. But again, to mention and highlight, it doesn't. It always means that there is collateral, and we are able to enforce and start selling either the claim or sell the property. And just to clarify, probably as well, maybe for the investors. If we are selling the claim, it means it's still claim with actually collateral,
Yes.
so what the other party is buying. So one investor here has asked also that why collateral is not being applied for the defaulted loans, but just to prove it, it's not correct. It's always there is collateral. So when we issue a loan, or the investors are investing in a particular, they have a loan agreements, and it's always written what is the collateral and what is actually securing their investment. Right?
Correct.
Then we have had a couple of questions asking also similar question, but have we have any third party done a revaluation of our German portfolio, what we have been issuing? So have you had anything about that?
Yes, so as we were planning to onboard different institutional investors last year, and some of them came on board, then for them we basically ordered, we have 50 projects currently in Germany, and 10 to 15 second opinions we ordered from trusted third parties, and 90% of the cases, the market value that we had in the valuation was confirmed. In some of the cases they adjusted it due to market changes, but in general, yes, the valuations have been overlooked, also the methodologies, and yes, we know the criticism that some of the valuations seem to be overvalued, but as I mentioned, then we have used low LTVs and also taken into account the purchase prices, not the market values. And yeah, I think in the future, the key is who is valuing. Even in every country we see that still after 7-8 years of business, we still are fighting with the valuators, with the market to get the proper valuations. The quality has improved, but still the valuation and the valuation report quality is on average, not the excellent one. So, and that is why we are internally looking over. In some cases we use automated valuation models, especially in Finland, to give our second opinion. And the loans are defaulted, we also look over internally the valuations.
One particular investor asked that as we are also aware, then, for example, in the UK market practice, this RICS valuation standard,
Yes.
then the valuators are actually liable for the evaluations they're providing. So if they're calculating the value, and if something goes into the wrong foot, for example, then the evaluators are liable for overpricing the collaterals, for example. Is it the case in Germany as well?
Yes, it is. But I think we can make them liable after we have sold the collateral, in that sense that something from the auction price doesn't basically cover our claim, and then when there's a residual claim, then we need to basically go against the valuators. And this is also the plan, that if there have been mistakes or frauds or negligence from the valuators, then we are going against them.
So it was great point here to maybe go through the again a really basic term LTV, because we've been discussing here also. I just mentioned previously in the final question I asked you about the low LTVs in Germany as well, and quite many people also were asking that even though we have low LTVs, are there any losses possible happening to the investors, under which circumstances? So could you maybe really concretely explain what means LTV, so that everybody will be on the same track? So let's take any German loan. We have issued it with 50% LTV, and now it's defaulted. What means LTV for the investors with the 50% if it's defaulted and it was issued with 50 LTV?
So LTV is a ratio that shows how much loan has been given out against the market value of the property. So in this case, 50% shows that even if the potential sale price in auction is basically 50% less than the market value at the point where when we issued the loan, then still principal of the loan can be recovered. Why the LTVs in Germany are lower than in other markets is again their market practice that they use quite optimistic valuation models, and due to that the LTVs have been adjusted from our side to be lower. And of course in every case and in every other market also we always leave some buffer for market changes and interest rate changes. So if something happens, then still in the case of auction, investors could recover the principal plus interest rate.
And yeah, basically to complement that, if as a simple example, there was a 1 million euro collateral in Germany and the loan was issued with a 50% LTV, it means that the loan that the borrower received was 500,000, which means that if we default that loan and the loan is being sold as a claim or through the auction, the property has been is being on sale, then it's the market price could be lowered, basically lower than I don't know, around 600,000 or 500,000 that investors could potentially start losing the principal of that. But that's why we have been keeping in Germany, especially when we entered, slightly lower LTVs than our average has been on the platform with other countries. I think it was around 59% currently the average in all the markets combined. So it was also, let's say, precautional activity we did when we entered the German market, that we didn't go full 75% and so on. Good that we probably took care of that question as well. So we go a little bit more maybe in some details that investors have been asking here. So are the buildings taken care of which are under our collateral? So are they insured against fire and theft? Are they heated in the winter? Are they maintained when necessary? What's the situation with that?
Yes, all of our real estate collaterals have insurances, and this is mandatory. If the borrower is in default or hostile and they don't order insurance, then we do it ourselves to protect them collaterals. And yes, there is insurance against fire, theft and so forth. Currently it depends on the collateral type. If it's a renovation collateral, then typically we don't physically control if the building is being heated or not. But of course, in cash flow objects, for instance, in Finland, we have even basically received permit to take over the collateral. Even if it's in the court processes. Okay. And we have basically provided insurance, security, heating to the properties. So it depends case by case.
It's probably also really going in depth with that topic, but I see clearly that some investors are asking about that. So in that sense, if we have issued the loan and we have put it a mortgage over the property, it's still on the name of the borrower. So it doesn't. It means that in the beginning we still are not the owners of that property, right? So we cannot go there and turn on the electricity. So it's we can only do it, as you mentioned, in case a court gives us a permission for that. Yes. And it probably depends really a lot on the case and the structure of that. If they believe that there is the property will be losing a lot of market value, for example, due to moisture or some kind of damages, then probably we are able to do some repair works, for example, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Maybe some also follow up on that from other angle. One particular question was asked that have we planned to to take over those properties where we have issued loans to finalize some kind of renovation works or development project to complete the building in order to increase its market value and sell it with a higher price? Or have we considered to become developers ourselves for a particular asset if it's needed?
So we have done this in other countries, and we have used our third-party debt collection agencies for that, who basically on behalf of our security agents take over the collaterals, we invest there, and then we will sell and recover the loans. So in Germany, we currently don't see this as a focus, but of course when there are some cases where this is needed, of course we will do it in that sense. So this is again part of our debt collection processes, but as the claim market and the workout market in Germany is quite efficient, without these takeovers, then we will try to recover the loans before that.
Okay. I will try to wrap up with final questions, particularly about the defaults and the German loans and lates, and then maybe we jump into some of the overall business questions and prolongs and updates. But one particular question was that does the sale of the real estate asset or debt or claim involve also offering the potential buyer a significant discount?
Correct, and this is why we have low LTVs, and this is why we have buffers. So we always need to look at the default process as a stressed situation, and of course the market sees that this property is with problems and they expect discount. So that is why sometimes when we receive the market value and the collateral goes to auction, then the market participates quite a significant discount, even though the market value in the valuation report in normal circumstances was higher. So the market value always is basically by definition sale between two basically independent parties, but when you are in auction, then it's basically not the case. So
of course, yeah, it's how the market will take it and how many bidders will be there. But yeah, here is also good to remind that with the low LTVs there is let's say a buffer in between. So even though there will be a significant discount offered to potential buyers, our still ultimate goal is to protect the investors' funds and recover maximum amount of funds from each and every single case we have had. Some of the questions also were related in the sense that why did it take so long to notice, for us to notice that there were some severe problems with German loans. I believe we answered that in the first part of the Q&A, but as we said, it's the loans are updated with our timeline. Every single loan with their status updates, and the timeline is being updated. So we started to see some trend line with higher increase of delays and defaults by end of last year, and as you mentioned in the beginning as well, then it took some time for us to address the issues and also consult with all the parties involved, so that as we were allowed to disclose first information, then we did it also on the timely matter. So that also explains that question. There was a question also, why don't we write updates on the platform? I don't know, I can start if you want to compliment me here. The reason is that we had the update section previously in each and every loan. But however, with the recent year, especially previous year, we had significant growth happening last year. So the amount of loans with all the stages grew too fast, and it would be simply impossible to write loan updates manually to each and every single loan. And that's why the timeline was introduced. It means that it covers main different timeline events, what could happen with the loan, starting from when it's issued, when it's funded, if it goes into late, particularly in different stages, either it's late for over 15 days or 30 days or 90 days. And we also explain in the timeline what are the steps Estateguru is taking with that loan. And as soon as it reaches default, there is also a particular timeline stage of default with different actually timeline events of the default, because the defaults have, I think if I remember correctly, 10 general stages, starting from defaulting the loan until the full recovery. But there are different events, either it's in the court or it's in the through the bailiff, and the auction and so on. So we try to explain the update with every particular individual loan with the timeline, and that makes us actually a little bit more free to actually execute and do everything possible to recover the loan. And we took this approach because it's in our opinion, it's not really useful to update every single week what has happened with the default. If in Germany, for example, the voluntarily period of 6 months has started, there is literally nothing to update in that 6 period. If we have called the borrower in a month and he's saying that I have still 5 months, then this update doesn't give any confidence or any actually reasonable update to the investors. So that's why we have introduced the timeline. We are still improving this. We also mentioned that in the previous Q&A, and we're going to maybe explain a little bit more details, the stages, and we're constantly improving. So all the feedback about the timeline is welcome as well. But at the same time, it's going to take a lot of the resource to we have funded over 5,000 loans, and to go and write every single stage a particular loan update. I don't know, is there something you would like to complement? Or
Yes, and what I want to add is that as you all have seen last year, that when we honestly or very concretely always published what the borrower said to us, that they will pay in 3 months, and they even showed us some documents and basically gave us confidence that the repayment will happen, but then it didn't happen. Then we gave another deadline, so we saw that this is not efficient in that sense. So most of the problematic borrowers, for instance, lie quite often, and it's not efficient to put these updates there. And what we did in the risk department is that our debt collector was responsible for these manual updates, that we changed the structure of the team, which means that we will put more focus on the real recoveries, not these manual updates. And we changed the traditional debt collector to a second default lawyer, which means that we will put more effort on recoveries and enforcements and getting loans back, and not writing these long updates where typically it was our conclusion that the borrowers basically lie, and we don't want to give empty promises. So best is to concentrate on the recoveries and give the update that the loan is recovered, not that it will be recovered.
Yes, and I hope that our investors respect our work as well. That we have a track record of recovering default loans in different countries. We are increasing and improving the strength of the recovery team as well, as you just mentioned, and we really want to deliver positive news, and we're really doing everything from our hands to prove that also to the investors with recovering the loans. And that means that we hope that this timeline will satisfy in general all the information, and it really is we need to focus on execution part now, and we just apologizing upfront as well if we are not able to reply immediately. If I don't know, every day somebody is asked about a particular loan, one question, another question, third question, and and each and every day happens the same situation, and we have solved that with automatic timeline, and also we focus on doing everything from our hands, because we are doing to protect everything to protect our investors' funds and recover the loans and get investors to believe in us even more. And I think our 7 years history is saying something as well with this. Then from probably a little bit also kind of positive note, that investors are asking that would there be any more German loans posted on our platform, because they want to actually continue investing in German loans as well. Could you give some hint about that?
Yes, we have still borrowers who are performing and who have constructions and developments ongoing. So yes, we will post new stages of these loans. And for new borrowers, the plan is to basically go to the more active loan origination in the second half of the year. But let's see, we want to deal and focus on the problematic ones, solve the issues, also put a more focused and experienced team in place, and I think then we can put more new loans up and start again in Germany more actively. Now
by focusing this first quarters on recovering the problematic loans and increasing the confidence, probably, in general, but the portfolio which is currently defaulted doesn't mean that the whole German market has only bad and the problematic borrowers, right? So it's
as you can see from our statistics, that we have originated over 105 or 10 million euros worth of loans in Germany. And 35 million has come back and
fully repaid,
not recovered, but repaid
plus for some of the recovered as well. So and of course the current market situation in general, the macro level, of course, has also changed a bit from previous year, and I think we still have inquiries with the good projects coming in from Germany, especially with this base rates increasing and really strong and prime location projects have been inquiring potential loans from us. So we'll see at what point we will be able to originate and continue originating new loans there. But currently, as we also communicated it in the beginning of January, we have halted and stopped all the new projects for some time being. And definitely we will inform everybody as soon as we are restarting our activities there. And maybe some final questions here about the prolongings. We did actually cover that, and you can find the link to the previous webinar as well under in the comment section and in our blog. But just to cover it, that why do we prolong loans? Why are we doing the prolongs, and why investors are not clearly informed about them? Could you maybe give a general quick answer about that?
So as you know, in real estate, and when you have renovated your own house or apartment, then everything is not going according to plan. So there are hiccups, there are problems with materials, construction workers, and that's why the initial plans and schedules are not fulfilled, and we are extending due to the fact that we want to help the borrowers to end the project in normal way and to give them time to basically repay and sell the asset in normal situation. So this has been allowed from our investors in our user and loan terms in that sense. So we are not doing anything against the law or against our user terms. And basically what we are not doing is that we are not prolonging late borrowers, and always we prolong if they pay the interest, fees, and if the business plan is still in good shape, that they can finish the construction works or development, and that everything is in that sense in favor of the investors.
Yeah, and in that sense, complement that answer is that as we discussed the default procedures and the processes, especially in Germany as well, and other markets, then in some of the situation, it's in the benefit for the investor to avoid actually this long process of the defaults and the court if there is actually a chance that the loan will be repaid on a good matter. If, for example, the property owner has agreed on sale of the collateral, or it's completed and there being apartments being sold. So in some of the cases when the loan term ends, there is reasons to instead have a prolonging of the loan to give additional time to complete the sale transaction or find new funds to repay this loan. And in that, as you also said, and we've been telling, we do prolongings only if certain conditions are met. So if the borrower is actually cooperating with us, if he pays all the occurred or accumulated interest for the previous months, or if it's full bullet loan for the whole period, and if there is a proof that actually there is potential solution coming in particular, let's say 2-3 months, let's say. But as also not to give full confidence that in after the 3 months prolonging, for example, there still might be delays, changes of the market situation, whatever. So it does not necessarily 100% means that after a prolong we have a successful repayment. So that's why we have had situations where we have prolonged the loans, it didn't turn out as expected, and we still had to default the loan because situation after the prolong could also change, and it's beyond our control in the sense. So that's why. And about the late loans, we do not prolong lates, but it just could be a couple of days if we are. I don't know. There could be. I think I remember the case where the borrower's loan term was ending, let's say, on the 10th, and on the 9th was agreed notary transaction. Then it was postponed for 2 days, and 1 day loan went already 1 day late. Then the notary transaction took place, but for 3 hours it got cancelled eventually at the transaction because the buyer and seller didn't agree on some particularities. Then it was again postponed for 2 days. So it might be situation that loan might be some days late, and then we prolong it. So but we definitely are not prolonging already really long lates. So just to again clarify some of the particularities, but the general message is that we are doing everything to get the money back. So our mindset from the beginning of establishing Estateguru has been that we are doing due diligence, we are analyzing the projects, we are providing them on the platform, we allow investors to choose, to diversify between different projects, and secondly, we are doing everything to get the money back, to get the money home in that sense, right? So
correct.
So investors should be confident that we are following that principle since day of establishing Estateguru, and we are continuing that as well.
And if you look our historical origination, it is nearly 600 million, even more, yeah?
I think around 685.
Even 700 million. So, and the 50% of that is repaid. So in that sense, so
I think even like 60. Yeah. So outstanding was around 300 something. So I guess it's still good to remind that our 7 years of history has delivered quite substantial amount of investors really good returns. So it's been historically, I think, around 11% and higher. And as you correctly mentioned, out of closely 700 million worth of loans, around 400, I think, has been fully repaid to the investors, and interest has been earned with 10 to 12% average interest rate. And of course, market dynamics is something that we cannot control, and in the good times, of course, it might be less problematic cases, but when the market shifts, there might be more lates and defaults, but it doesn't, again, necessarily mean that investors should be losing all their money. We have secured loans, they are collateralized, and it just takes a little bit more time. And the investors should also probably remind themselves that what if they have started to invest long time ago, it's a long investing is not short term, it's a long term principle there, and it's some loans get back before time as well. There are many early repayments also in Germany, I know, and also other markets. It means that by diversifying and keeping a healthy portfolio, you're confident that you are still earning good returns on your portfolio. I guess here we wrap it up. So I believe we touched mostly all the questions being raised. Hopefully, again, if some of you didn't get an answer on a particular question you asked, then please feel free to write us in to our customer support. We try to answer you as soon as possible, but as we mentioned during today, it's we doing everything from our hands to solve the cases, and it's probably if we are not answering on the timely matter on particular loan number X, Y, Z, then it means that there is nothing to currently update, something that actually will inform or let's say explain what's happening with the loan. So please look at the timeline, provide us some feedbacks about the timeline as well if you need to, if you feel that there could be improvements done. And we are going to also continue with the Q&A session in the upcoming months, I believe. So whenever there are going to be maybe some topics that we want to touch more closely and we see many questions coming, then we are definitely going to continue that and being the same transparent. So but thank you for listening today. Hopefully that shared more light into the situation with the defaults, the lates, with our loans, next steps we are taking in the market, and how the risk department is performing. Feel free to share feedback about the Q&A session. It's really important for us to do next time even better. So thank you again, and until next time.